Hanson and members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Meyer, and members of the audience. My name is Rachel Coyle, and I'm the parent of a 4th grade student at Woodside Elementary. I have served as the co-president of our PFC for the last 2 years. I'm here tonight because I am concerned for the safety and education of the students at our school. Mrs. Cindy Mattioni has proven time and again that she is ineffective as a principal due to her inability to follow through, her lack of leadership, and her lack of integrity. Because I only have a brief time to speak, I will give you some high-level points about Mrs. Mattioni's performance, and I'm happy for you to contact me so that I can provide further detail. First, her lack of integrity. Rather than standing behind her decision to get rid of 2 teachers and accept voluntary transfers for next school year, Mrs. Mattioni lied to parents and told us she was forced to do so by the district. With more questioning, she had no choice but to admit the truth. Rather than resolving difficult situations by bringing parents and teachers together, she pits us against each other by changing her story depending on who she's talking to, so that she can tell each of us what she thinks we want to hear. Mrs. Mattioni actually told me that she has no control over getting teachers to do certain things, and if I wanted a 4th grade field trip to happen, I should rally up some parents and pressure the teachers to get it done. Second, she has no follow-through. Mrs. Mattioni requested that she be in charge of organizing assemblies for our PFC, and as a result, we're only having 2 this year in the last 6 weeks of school, and she spent only $900 of our $400,000 budget. PFC voted on and approved an art program for our students, but Mrs. Mattioni never brought it to the teachers to coordinate her side, so it never happened. In trying to resolve our 4th grade field trip issue, each point of contact was initiated by me to find a solution with no follow-up from Mrs. Mattioni. Ultimately, the solution was that 20 of us took our children out of school for the day to go on the Sutter's Fort field trip as part of their California history curriculum. And most importantly, and finally, the safety of our children. There have been fights on campus with no clear disciplinary outcomes. When pressed on the issue, Mrs. Mattioni falls back to district policy and privacy. And so the fights continue, and even the teachers are not given information on the outcomes. We have no student-parent handbook at Woodside, so I don't even know what our own school policy is or what expectations have been set forth. When parents suggested using a parent patrol at recess to assist yard duty and reward good behavior on the playground, Mrs. Mattioni said that the district would not allow parents on campus in this role, and that she does not believe in rewarding students for good behavior. These are elementary school students. When the storm of the century left Woodside without electricity, Mrs. Mattioni was off campus, and her excuse for not getting to school was that no one told her it was serious enough for her to be there. There was a bullying incident between camp counselors and a 5th grade student at their away camp, and Mrs. Mattioni to this day has not followed up with a parent of the victimized child. In summary, Mrs. Mattioni's performance over the last year and a half makes me sure she should not be the principal of Woodside. Our school is suffering from her lack of leadership, and there are veteran teachers who are ready to leave our school because of her. We can't let that happen. I'm here to request your help in resolving this issue. The safety and education of 400 students depends on it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Coyle. Next speaker is Treena Meriam.
Good evening, President Hanson and members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Meyer, and members of the audience. My name is Treena Meriam, and I have 3 kids currently attending Woodside, including a 5th grader who has attended since kindergarten. I'm here today because I love being a Woodside parent, but I strongly believe that the school was on the wrong path under the direction of Principal Mattioni. While I support the statements of the numerous parent letters you have no doubt received regarding various instances in which Ms. Mattioni has failed in her responsibilities, I will highlight 3 in the time that I have this evening. First is lack of teacher support with subs. I have 3 children at Woodside, and at least once a week, one of them is either in another classroom because their teacher is absent, or their classroom has extra kids because another teacher is absent. This has been an ongoing issue all year. I realize that this is a district-wide issue, but I believe it is Ms. Mattioni's responsibility to at least check in on these teachers or maybe take over the class for a short time to help them out. There was one week where my daughter had extra kids in her class 3 days in a row, and when Ms. Mattioni was asked why she wasn't able to help out even once during that time, she responded that she had been dealing with emergencies all 3 days. The teachers I have spoken with don't feel like she supports them when she leaves them stranded in situations like that and doesn't step in to make things easier on them and the students. Second is failure to implement measures to respond to and to prevent student bullying. We have had several issues with bullying this year, and Ms. Mattioni refuses to address this. The parents have come up with lots of ideas on ways to try to prevent this from going on, such as having parents volunteer to assist with yard duty and to help oversee the playground. There are only 2 yard duties, and it is impossible for them to see all that's going on. We have several parents interested in volunteering, but we were told by Ms. Mattioni that we don't have a bullying problem at Woodside and that something like that would never work because parents don't like other parents disciplining their children. Another idea we had was to use the Peacemakers program, which allows students to be involved and teaches conflict resolution. We believe this program was purchased a couple of years ago and is being stored in one of our unused classrooms. One parent offered to head up a team of parents to help clear out the room and hopefully find this program, but Ms. Mattioni said she works better alone and would rather not have any help. We would like to get this program going for next year, but now have to wait for her to locate it, and as it's nearing the end of the school year, it probably won't happen. These kinds of things just don't seem to be a priority for her. And third is lack of oversight for fifth grade camping trip and failure to respond to issues with camp counselors. The fifth grade camping trip is a long-standing tradition and a rite of passage at Woodside. This year's trip was almost canceled, if not for the over and above efforts of a group of parents and the PFC. But I'm more concerned with the lack of attention that Ms. Mattioni gave to the safety of the children on the trip. Ms. Mattioni didn't interview counselors for fifth grade camp as principals have always done in the past. We don't know who was involved in hiring the counselors. There was an issue with one counselor mistreating one of the fifth grade girls, and even though the parent of this child has tried to follow up on this with Ms. Mattioni, she still hasn't been able to, and it hasn't been resolved. And I've since learned that there's been other students that had an issue with camp and it hasn't been resolved. Woodside is a tight community of thoughtful students, caring parents, and great teachers. The school's resolve has been tested in recent years by a number of tragedies, yet we have endured and our community bond is stronger than ever. But this year's failures of Ms. Mattioni cannot and will not be tolerated. Many parents will transfer their kids, and many of the teachers are threatening to leave Woodside if there is no action taken by the board. Thank you for your time and for your concern for Woodside's future.
Thank you, Mrs. Meriam. Next is, Lori